So your family decided to escape, right?
right?
Was this a unanimous decision, or was this were there people in your family that wanted to stay?
Yeah, it was a struggle. So this is 1975 when the communists come in. Thing kind of lock in. You can't do much. They aren't freedom. But about a year or two later, they can kind of get a little bit lenient, right? So people can go here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I guess you have to put money on the table for them to buy your little receipts, and you can travel from here to there. So things get a little bit better. Okay, we go back to school. Um,
How did your education change?
oh well, obviously changed big time, okay? Because now instead of learning your basic stuff, communism theory come in. Right, you have to learn
Oh
about
yeah.
communism.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, pretty much you learn about the communist theory. How to take care. Oh, another thing is that I remember go to school. The activity we do, like over here, got PE. We have PE soccer, though. But
Yeah.
there's a thing that's unique to me, that you learn how to farm as a community. All the kids will go out there, plant
In school.
vegetable. Yeah, in the back. There's the big old backyard. So now it's farming, right? The communism. That's how brainwash big thing to me. So all the kids would go. Every class would have a plot of land. I don't know, a couple of yard, and you would plant certain vegetable. Every classroom would have something. Well, that's something I remember that we had to do. We thought it was fun back then. Another thing with class, is that when we go to school, every other week or so, a student would be missing. Okay, why? Well, they escaped it. They would left
Oh
town,
wow.
and we never see them. So, the teacher were missing, and the classroom would get smaller and smaller and smaller. And the worst thing here for me is that sometimes you would have rumors like, "Hey, you know what? Who tried to escape and they didn't make it? Their whole family got killed along the way there." You hear that story, all the time, and every week people go, to the point where it's like, student of 30 student in the class. When I left, it was like 15 or so. And this is
Wow.
not a couple of years later. Of course, people come and go. It was down to less than half eventually, so people were left slowly. Now, as far as my family, my dad, at that point, obviously, he got brainwashed pretty darn good. Didn't decide want to go.
Oh wow.
Okay, so my mother said, we gotta go. So I remember my parents said, well, okay, you don't want to go? Fine, my mother said, okay. And so she said, I'll take these. So my mother would take, my older sister and me, and then a younger one or something, like 3 or 4. My parent had, 5, and my dad would take the 2, 1, and 1. Anyway, they were saying how they're gonna split up who go first.
So if I'm getting this straight, your dad was more in line with the communist vision at this point, just because
Correct.
he'd been to the camps, right?
Correct.
And
Yeah.
so your mom was more of the defector, being like,
Correct.
"We need to take the
Yes,
family."
exactly.
And
yes.
so she won eventually.
Yeah, eventually, right? So, well, I mean, my mother said, "Well, if you're not going, I'm going." Okay, because all family relative that was able to have to leave. Okay, the story is that when my dad said, "Okay," I guess they decided we need to leave, right? It didn't happen overnight. Obviously, it took
Right.
I don't know, maybe a year or so. What happened, from what I gather from my parents, that they know they had to leave. So my dad, back then I told you he was tax, kind of like taxi
Right.
driver, and he had somebody who also worked with him, and that person lived out in the small town, out in the hood somewhere in the country, and he may know people, how to take people out across the street. So for us to escape, you have to be able to get through this normal route to get out of the city. Okay.
Okay.
So during that time, a year or so, my parents would lease a farm somewhere out in the country, and every week we would go out. We would say, "Oh, we're going to the farm." We would hand them the paper. We're going to the farm. So we go on the farm for a long, long time until they know, oh, they're going to the farm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, one night, this farm thing going out. So vivid. I remember vivid clearly that night we were eating dinner. I think, yeah, we're eating dinner, right? And so somebody would come and say, "Hey, okay, I guess to tell my parents ready to go." And after dinner, my parents, "Okay, let's go pack everything." Everything was in a hush. We didn't know any better, so this is they could get things together, pack whatever we need to pack, and get going tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so evening they announced it, and next day we didn't leave immediately. Next day was evening that we left.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, going out to this farm every weekend.
Yeah.
Let the checkpoint folks understand that we're heading out. Just go out city. They didn't suspect it.
So what all did you take to this farm over this year? Were there supplies, clothes?
No. You just go. Go just like go to the farm out of the city.
Oh.
Basically, we are trying to set a I guess a norm for them that we go out every week.
Oh,
So they didn't expect you be gone.
That's clever. So you set this kind of expectation that this family always goes to the farm
Correct.
every weekend.
Yeah.
So there's no threat there.
Correct.
So as opposed to maybe if you just
Disap-
try to go the first time.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So they kind of know, the people at the checkpoint kind of know, these guys just going there.
Gotcha.
So we did that. Okay. So just one night, when we start to pack and go, well, we just went and then we come back. Okay. So that night. Okay. Now that night, when we left, I don't know exact date, probably 1978 or so. So I can kind of briefly describe to you. So again, the way we left, we get on this Toyota truck that take people out of the city with a little bench and a wooden bench. So we were all on the same truck going out of the city. Okay.
And where was the end destination?
Well,
where were you being taken out to?
Okay, so we need to go out in the small country first, out in the wood, and then from there go across the border to Thailand. From what I know, to this refugee camp in Ubon. There's a refugee camp that we know of that people go there.
Okay.
So obviously you have to cross the Mekong River and what have you.
And this refugee camp was in Thailand, you said?
Correct, in Thailand.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but getting there is where the challenge is. Okay, I understand that if you drive, maybe a day you can get there, but anyhow, the route we took is it's a lot of effort. So we left town first that night, and then when we left town that night, we stayed in a little village called I can't even think of the name now. But anyway, we stayed in the village of this person's house, okay, nighttime. And we waited until late at night, when it's dark before they start heading out. Okay. So, my family, they were my parent, my older sister, and there are five of us, and I have two cousins that actually came with us as well.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll go out this place out there in the country. So we sit there, wait till nighttime, dark, and then start walking out. So from what I understand, this is what happened. My parent had to hire these people, to take. We don't have to go, so the people to take you out. So the person would have a leader, and we would have a person in the back and the person in front to lead. And of course, because we have some stuff, so they also hire two persons to help carry stuff for us to walk out.
Okay, so let's break down this kind of convoy, right? So it's 7 people, including you and your family, and then you're saying there are 2 more people that are helping you, or 2 cousins.
2 cousins, correct? Okay. Yeah, 2 cousins come with us,
okay.
and then the folks that will actually help us escape. So there's a leader, okay, and then the leader have one the front and the back, and then 2 other person they help. We had to carry stuff, right? Because back then, we were 10 and young. My mother, I had a brother who's only 2 years old. He 1 or 2 years old. He's still, in a formula. So let me go ahead and get started. When we start leaving that little village, going up the mountain, I start noticing or hear the sound. A lot of Vietnamese soldiers with Vietnamese talking, and couldn't see nothing out there. But when I go up the mountain, I start look down. I see a camp out there in the base camp. The soldier, all Vietnamese, all this military truck with all Vietnamese soldier in Laos, in the camp. Yeah. Okay, they have fire and they're all speaking Vietnamese. Because up the mountain, you can hear the voice, they're all Vietnamese. I can hear it clearly. Okay, we know they were there for sure. They control majority of it. So anyway, we walk along up the path. Follow. It was pretty dark that day. Couldn't even see a darn thing. Just you got to hold on somebody's tail, a shirt, something to follow them. It's very dark. There's no moon, nothing.
So that's how you were led. You had to grab onto the
correct.
person in front
Yes.
of their shirt.
Correct.
Because you couldn't see.
And no talking, right? So so no talking would lead. And I guess my brother, my mother or my father was carrying it, and going up the mountain, my sister was carrying a hot water bottle. Well, along the way, she fell, click, crack. So there was no hot water for my baby brother at all. So they had to use cold water to mix for him, and going out there. But the funny thing is, I thought, that's just one night thing. No, we stay up somewhere in the mountain. Okay, don't know where, and spend a night there. You don't move in the daytime, only nighttime. So we stay on the mountain somewhere, and then we wait again until the next evening or something to start moving in the dark. But anyway, out the mountain, out in the wood, and I noticed that, mosquito, man, there was size of this big, flying out in the wood. And one thing I did notice that, I had never been up the mountain in the area, but in the south, so many tropical fruits and stuff. I mean, you got these oranges, you got grapefruit, the whole mountain was full of great
These
food.
were at the place you were staying at. You just
No, we were up the mountain already. We were going down. We were going to go across to Thailand. Okay, so we'll go stay on the mountain. We spend a night out on the mountain, and then on the next day we walked down the mountain. We didn't cross the Mekong River yet. We crossed the Mekong River another time. The second day, either in the early morning or what. So that's another thing. Walking along for at least a day now, and then we stop to rest until we're ready to cross the Mekong River. Okay, now you have to cross river. They have, they're what now? With 7, a little bit, 10, 12 people of us. So there's 2 boats. Okay, and crossing river. Well, my younger sister, she was sitting in the front, Pet sitting in the front, and these guys at first, it's a boat with a machine back to propel, okay?
A motor.
Right, a motor in the back. So what it is that we get on that, about 4 a.m. I think, some in the morning. They push us out. Then we will float down the river first, probably down halfway. Then they will start the engine and crack. When they start the engine, you hear gunfire in the back. So there were people around. Yes, there were people probably near the camp somewhere. I mean, not in the border somewhere. They know, right? So that's why these guys, they were just pushing it out, right? No sound until you get halfway to the river, and then they start the motor and flew across. I remember when we crossed the river on the other side. Well, before we crossed that, another thing scary was that my dad told me, water was flowing when the engine started and it hit my little sister. My sister was screaming, crying. My dad said, if he was sitting back. He said that if I was sitting next to her, he would have thrown her overboard. God. Because you got 12 lives or more in your right there and then, right? So anyway, I guess somebody grabbed him out and hushed it.
You were in a boat and you were being shot at by multiple different directions, I'm assuming, speeding down this river, and you were trying to get to Thailand, correct?
Correct, yes.
What happened when you got onto mainland again?
So when we crossed the Mekong River, again, it was totally dark that night, okay? And when we got, again, we're just holding somebody's back and just follow them, can't see. When I was walking the sand, if you ever walk on the beach on sand, that's all I heard. It was total silent. And so we hear the footstep, you can count on the number of people foot. So anyway, we walk, just follow. I don't know, nobody know where we're going. We just know somebody's leading us. So we just follow and just go up to a little village. I had to come to find out later on that when we cross to this village, well, actually it's in Thailand now. And then, of course, the Thailand official, you have to pay some money to get across. So I did not know it, but when we got there the next morning, okay, all the kids now was sent onto this truck, just like one of those like military truck, but actually a school bus where the truck come take the kid go to school. Anyway, we will haul on this truck and go. My parents didn't come with us. We did not know. Okay, so at that point, I think a day or two, I can't remember, but we were on that truck, and there was one adult took us here and there. Okay, until eventually we went to the refugee camp in Thailand, Ubon. Okay, when we went there in this camp, we have other relatives who were there before, and then they went there and looked for them and said, "Hey, you got your relative here." So they took us into their house.
So that's how you got out of Laos and into Thailand?
Correct.